Why do we crave validation from others? It's a question that has echoed through the ages, and yet it feels more relevant today than ever. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. These words remind us that true self-worth doesn't come from the approval of others, but from mastering our own thoughts and actions. In a world that constantly demands us to seek external validation, Stoicism offers a timeless path to reclaiming our inner strength and building a sense of self-worth that no one can take away. In this video, we'll explore 18 powerful Stoic practices designed to help you break free from the need for validation and cultivate a mindset rooted in confidence and resilience. Whether you're struggling with self-doubt or simply looking to deepen your understanding of Stoic philosophy, these tools will guide you toward a life of greater clarity, purpose, and independence. Let's begin this journey together. Stoicism teaches us to focus only on what's within our control, a principle that lies at the heart of building true self-worth. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, framed this idea as the dichotomy of control. He said, "Some things are within our power while others are not." Our thoughts, actions, and choices are ours to command, but the opinions of others, external events, and even the outcomes of our efforts often lie beyond our reach. This distinction is crucial because it shifts our attention inward, away from the noise of external validation and toward the quiet strength of self-mastery. Think about how often we let the approval of others dictate our happiness. Social media, for instance, can become a trap, constantly pulling us into a cycle of likes, comments, and comparisons. But here's the truth. No amount of external validation can fill the void if we haven't first cultivated a sense of worth from within. Epictetus reminds us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, the opinions of others are irrelevant to your growth. What matters is how you choose to respond to life's challenges and how you align your actions with your values. So let's take a moment to reflect. What external validation do you currently seek that you could let go of? Is it the need for constant praise at work, the desire for social media approval, or the pressure to meet others' expectations? By identifying these areas, you can begin to redirect your energy toward what truly matters, your own thoughts, actions, and growth. This is the first step toward building a self-worth that's unshakable, no matter what the world throws your way. Seneca, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, faced immense adversity throughout his life. Exiled by Emperor Claudius, stripped of his wealth, and later forced to tutor the infamous Nero, Seneca endured trials that would have broken many. Yet he emerged stronger, using these challenges as fuel for his philosophical growth. He once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." This idea is at the core of building inner resilience. It's not about avoiding hardship, but about embracing it as a teacher. Resilience isn't something we're born with, it's forged in the fires of struggle. Think about it, when life is easy, we rarely grow. It's only when we're pushed out of our comfort zones that we discover what we're truly capable of. Seneca reminds us that hardships aren't obstacles to our happiness, they're the very tools that shape us into stronger, more resilient individuals. Take criticism at work, for example. It's easy to feel defeated when someone points out your flaws or questions your abilities. But what if, instead of taking it personally, you saw it as an opportunity to improve? What if you reframed that criticism as a chance to learn, adapt, and grow? This shift in perspective is what Stoicism teaches us, to see challenges not as threats, but as invitations to become better versions of ourselves. So here's a question to consider. What's a challenge you're facing right now, and how can you reframe it as an opportunity to grow stronger? Maybe it's a difficult project at work, a strained relationship, or even a personal goal that feels out of reach. By shifting your mindset and embracing the struggle, you're not just enduring the challenge, you're using it to build the kind of resilience that will serve you for the rest of your life. This practice isn't about pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about recognizing that every difficulty carries within it the seeds of growth. And when you cultivate this mindset, you'll find that no challenge is too great to overcome. Everything in life is temporary. This simple truth lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy, and it's a powerful tool for freeing yourself from the need for validation. The Stoics called this idea Memento Mori, a reminder of our mortality and the fleeting nature of all things. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. His words aren't meant to be morbid, they're a call to focus on what truly matters. When we recognize that even the loudest applause or the harshest criticism will fade, we stop clinging to external approval and start living with greater purpose. Think about the way we often chase validation in our daily lives. Social media, for instance, thrives on the illusion of permanence. A post might get hundreds of likes one day, but by the next it's forgotten. The same goes for praise at work or compliments from friends. They feel good in the moment, but they don't last. And yet, we often tie our self-worth to these fleeting moments, as if they define who we are. The Stoics remind us that this is a mistake. External approval is like a wave in the ocean. It rises, it crashes, and then it's gone. What endures is the person you choose to be, regardless of the waves. So, what would you do differently if you truly embraced the impermanence of external approval? Would you still spend hours crafting the perfect social media post, or would you focus on creating something meaningful for yourself? Would you worry so much about what others think, or would you prioritize living in alignment with your values? These questions aren't meant to shame or judge. They're an invitation to reflect on how much of your energy is spent chasing things that won't last. Embracing impermanence doesn't mean you stop caring about your goals or relationships. It means you stop letting the fear of judgment or the desire for praise dictate your choices. When you internalize the idea that everything is temporary, you gain a sense of freedom. You start to see that the only approval that truly matters is your own, and that's something no one can take away from you. This practice isn't about dismissing the value of connection or achievement. It's about recognizing that these things are fleeting and that your worth isn't tied to them. When you live with this awareness, you stop seeking validation from the outside world and start building a self-worth that's rooted in something deeper, something that lasts. One of the most transformative practices in Stoicism is daily self-reflection, a habit that allows us to pause, observe, and learn from our own thoughts and actions. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoics, left behind a treasure trove of wisdom in his personal journal, Meditations. This wasn't a book meant for publication. It was a private space where he grappled with his fears, examined his choices, and reminded himself of his values. His writings show us that self-reflection isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about asking yourself, what did I learn about myself today, and using that insight to grow. Journaling as a tool for self-reflection is more than just writing down your thoughts. It's a way to create distance between yourself and your emotions, allowing you to observe them without being overwhelmed. For example, imagine you've had a tough day at work. Instead of immediately seeking reassurance from others, you sit down with your journal and write about what happened. As you put your feelings into words, you might notice patterns. Perhaps you're overly sensitive to criticism or quick to assume the worst. This awareness gives you the power to respond differently next time, rather than reacting impulsively. The beauty of journaling lies in its simplicity. You don't need to write pages and pages. Even a few sentences can be enough to spark meaningful reflection. Start with a question like, what did I do well today? Or where did I fall short of my values? These prompts help you focus on what's within your control, your actions, your mindset, and your growth. Over time, this practice builds a deeper understanding of yourself, one that's rooted in honesty and self-compassion. So, what insights could daily self-reflection bring to your life? Maybe you'll discover hidden strengths you didn't know you had. Maybe you'll uncover habits that no longer serve you. Or perhaps you'll simply find a sense of clarity and calm in the midst of life's chaos. Whatever the outcome, the act of reflecting on your day is a powerful way to reconnect with your values and strengthen your sense of self-worth. This practice isn't about dwelling on the past or criticizing yourself for every mistake. It's about learning, growing, and becoming more aligned with the person you want to be. And when you make self-reflection a daily habit, you'll find that you no longer need to seek validation from others, because you've already given yourself the gift of understanding and acceptance. Epictetus once said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of detaching from outcomes, a practice that can liberate us from the endless cycle of seeking validation. When we tie our self-worth to the results of our efforts, we give away our power. We become slaves to external validation, constantly chasing approval or fearing failure. But what if, instead of fixating on the outcome, we focused on the effort itself? What if we measured our worth not by what we achieve, but by how we show up in the process? Consider this. Imagine you're working on a project at your job. You pour hours into it, refining every detail, striving for perfection. But when the final presentation doesn't go as planned, you feel crushed. The criticism from your boss or colleague stings, and suddenly all your hard work feels meaningless. This is the trap of outcome attachment. When we hinge our self-worth on the result, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The Stoics remind us that outcomes are often beyond our control. What we can control is the effort we put in, the integrity we bring to the task, and the lessons we learn along the way. Detaching from outcomes doesn't mean you stop caring about your goals. It means you stop letting the fear of failure or the desire for praise dictate your actions. Think of it like planting a tree. You can water it, give it sunlight, and nurture it with care, but you can't control whether it grows tall or bears fruit. What matters is the effort you put into tending it. The same applies to your work, relationships, and personal growth. When you shift your focus from the outcome to the process, you free yourself from the need for validation. You start to find joy in the act of doing rather than the result of having done. So, how can you begin to detach from outcomes in your own life? Start by asking yourself, what's one area where I'm overly focused on the result? Is it a project at work, a fitness goal, or even a personal relationship? Once you've identified it, try reframing your approach. Instead of asking, will this succeed? Ask, what can I learn from this experience, or how can I grow through this process? This subtle shift in mindset can transform the way you approach challenges, helping you build a sense of self-worth that's rooted in effort, not outcomes. Detaching from outcomes isn't about giving up or settling for less. It's about reclaiming your power and finding fulfillment in the journey itself. When you embrace this practice, you'll discover that the need for validation fades away, replaced by a quiet confidence in your ability to show up, do your best, and let the rest unfold as it will. What truly matters to you? It's a question that cuts through the noise of daily life and gets to the heart of who you are. Stoicism teaches us that living in alignment with our own values is the foundation of true self-worth. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, put it this way: "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." In other words, when we define what truly matters to us, our virtues, our principles, our purpose, we free ourselves from the endless chase for external approval. Living authentically means making choices that reflect your values even when they're unpopular. Imagine you're in a situation where speaking up for what's right could cost you social approval. Maybe it's calling out unethical behavior at work or standing up for someone who's being treated unfairly. In that moment, you have a choice. Do you prioritize integrity, or do you seek the comfort of fitting in? Stoicism reminds us that true strength lies in choosing the former. When you act in alignment with your values, you build a sense of self-respect that no amount of external validation can match. But how do you define your values in the first place? Start by asking yourself, what principles do I want to guide my life? Is it honesty, courage, compassion, or something else entirely? These values become your compass, helping you navigate decisions with clarity and confidence. For example, if one of your core values is kindness, you might choose to respond to criticism with understanding rather than defensiveness. Or if integrity is your guiding principle, you might refuse to compromise your ethics even when it's tempting to take the easy way out. Here's a thought to consider. What values do you want to guide your decisions regardless of others' opinions? Take a moment to reflect on this. Maybe it's a value you've always admired but haven't fully embraced, or perhaps it's something you've been living out without even realizing it. By identifying and committing to these principles, you create a life that's not only meaningful but also deeply fulfilling. Defining your values isn't about perfection, it's about intention. It's about making choices that align with who you want to be, even when it's hard. And when you live this way, you'll find that the need for external validation fades away. Why? Because you've already given yourself the greatest gift of all, the confidence that comes from knowing you're living authentically, guided by what truly matters to you. Cato the Younger, a towering figure in Roman history and a devoted Stoic, was known for his unshakable composure in the face of criticism. When mocked or insulted, he would often respond with silence or a simple smile, refusing to let the opinions of others dictate his emotions. This wasn't indifference, it was a profound understanding that criticism, no matter how harsh, couldn't diminish his worth unless he allowed it to. Cato's approach offers a powerful lesson. Criticism is not something to fear or avoid, but an opportunity to grow stronger and more self-assured. The Stoics saw criticism as a mirror, reflecting not who we are, but how others perceive us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside, and see what sort of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they should hold any particular opinion about you." His words remind us that criticism often says more about the critic than it does about us. Instead of taking it personally, we can use it as a chance to examine our actions, refine our character, and grow. In today's world, criticism is everywhere, especially online. A single comment or review can feel like a personal attack, leaving us defensive or discouraged. But what if we approached online negativity the way Cato did? What if, instead of reacting impulsively, we paused to ask ourselves, is there truth in this criticism? Can I learn from it, even if the feedback is unfair or unkind? Responding with grace and curiosity can turn a negative experience into a moment of growth. Consider this: when someone criticizes you, they're giving you a gift, an opportunity to see yourself through someone else's eyes. It's up to you whether you accept that gift or reject it. If the criticism is valid, it's a chance to improve. If it's not, it's a chance to practice resilience and self-assurance. Either way, you come out stronger. So, how can you use criticism to strengthen your self-worth? Start by reframing it as feedback, not failure. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? Then let go of the need to defend or explain yourself. Remember, your worth isn't determined by what others think of you. It's determined by how you respond to life's challenges. When you approach criticism with this mindset, you'll find that it no longer holds power over you. Instead, it becomes a tool for building the kind of self-worth that's unshakable, no matter what others say. This practice isn't about ignoring your feelings or pretending criticism doesn't sting. It's about choosing to rise above it, to see it as an opportunity rather than an obstacle. And when you do, you'll discover a quiet confidence that no amount of criticism can ever take away. Comparison is the thief of joy, a truth that resonates deeply in our modern world, where social media and constant connectivity make it all too easy to measure our lives against others. The Stoics understood this danger long before the age of Instagram and TikTok. Epictetus, one of the most practical Stoic philosophers, warned, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters, do not wish to seem knowledgeable. In other words, the moment you start comparing yourself to others, you lose sight of your own path and the unique progress you're making. Think about how often we fall into the comparison trap. Scrolling through social media, we see curated snapshots of other people's lives, their achievements, their vacations, their seemingly perfect relationships. It's easy to feel like you're falling behind, like you're not doing enough or being enough. But here's the thing, those snapshots don't tell the whole story. They're highlights, not realities, and when we compare our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, we set ourselves up for dissatisfaction and self-doubt. The Stoics offer a simple but powerful antidote to this. Focus on your own journey. Instead of looking sideways at what others are doing, look inward at what you're becoming. Are you living in alignment with your values? Are you making progress, no matter how small? These are the questions that matter. As Epictetus reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. When you stop comparing and start focusing on your own growth, you reclaim your freedom and your joy. So, where does comparison creep into your life most often? Is it in your career, your relationships, or even your hobbies? Take a moment to reflect on this. Then, ask yourself, what would it look like to shift your focus from others' achievements to your own progress? Maybe it's setting a personal goal instead of chasing someone else's standard of success. Or perhaps it's celebrating your small wins, even if they don't measure up to what you see online. This practice isn't about ignoring others or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't tied to how you stack up against anyone else. When you stop comparing and start focusing on your own path, you'll find a deeper sense of fulfillment, one that's rooted in your own growth, not someone else's highlight reel. And that's a joy no comparison can ever steal. Seneca once wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." These words capture the essence of gratitude, a practice that shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have. In a world that constantly pushes us to want more, gratitude acts as an anchor, grounding us in the present moment and reminding us of the abundance that surrounds us. It's not about ignoring life's challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding light even in the darkest corners and recognizing the small, often overlooked blessings that make life meaningful. Gratitude has a unique way of reframing our perspective. When we focus on what we're thankful for, we naturally stop comparing ourselves to others or chasing external validation. Instead, we begin to see the richness of our own lives, independent of anyone else's opinions or achievements. Think about it. When was the last time you paused to appreciate the warmth of the sun on your face, the laughter of a loved one, or even the simple fact that you have a roof over your head? These moments, though small, are powerful reminders of what truly matters. One practical way to cultivate gratitude is through journaling. Each day, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand or life-changing sometimes. It's the smallest things that carry the most weight. Maybe it's the first sip of coffee in the morning, a kind word from a stranger, or the quiet stillness of an early morning. By putting these thoughts into words, you create a tangible record of the good in your life, something you can return to on harder days. So, let's try it right now. What are 3 things you're grateful for today, independent of others' opinions? Take a moment to reflect. Maybe it's a skill you've developed, a moment of peace you experienced, or even the strength you've shown in facing a challenge. Gratitude isn't about comparing your life to someone else's, it's about appreciating your own journey, exactly as it is. This practice isn't just about feeling good in the moment, it's about building a mindset that sees abundance even in scarcity. When you make gratitude a daily habit, you'll find that the need for external validation begins to fade. Why? Because you've already filled your cup with the things that truly matter, things that no one can take away from you. And in that space of gratitude, you'll discover a self-worth that's unshakable, rooted not in what others think of you, but in the quiet joy of simply being alive. How do you respond to emotional highs and lows? It's a question worth asking because our emotions often feel like a roller coaster. One moment we're soaring with joy, and the next we're plummeting into frustration or despair. The Stoics, however, offer a different approach: emotional equanimity. This isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine. It's about finding balance so that no matter what life throws at you, you remain steady and grounded. Marcus Aurelius put it beautifully when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Emotional equanimity is like being the eye of a storm, calm and centered, even as chaos swirls around you. Imagine you're in the middle of a heated disagreement. Your instinct might be to react defensively, to let anger or frustration take over. But what if instead you paused? What if you took a deep breath and reminded yourself that the other person's words don't define you? This is the essence of Stoic practice, mastering your emotions so they don't master you. Cultivating emotional stability doesn't happen overnight. It's a skill, one that requires practice and patience. Start by observing your emotional triggers. What situations tend to throw you off balance? Is it criticism, rejection, or perhaps unexpected setbacks? Once you've identified these triggers, you can begin to respond rather than react. For example, the next time you feel anger rising, try this simple exercise. Pause, take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, will this matter in a week? A month, a year? This small shift in perspective can help you regain control and respond with clarity instead of chaos. So, how can you cultivate emotional stability in challenging situations? One powerful tool is journaling. At the end of each day, reflect on your emotional highs and lows. What triggered them? How did you respond? Over time, this practice will help you spot patterns and develop strategies for staying balanced. Another approach is to practice mindfulness, whether through meditation, deep breathing, or simply taking a moment to ground yourself in the present. These techniques won't eliminate life's challenges, but they'll give you the tools to face them with grace and resilience. Emotional equanimity isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about learning to navigate your feelings with wisdom and intention. When you master this practice, you'll find that external events, whether praise or criticism, success or failure, no longer have the power to shake your core. Instead, you'll stand firm, anchored in the quiet strength of your own self-worth, and that's a gift no one can take away. You can't control how others perceive you. It's a simple truth, but one that's incredibly hard to accept. The Stoics, however, saw this as a liberating realization. Epictetus, the philosopher who spent much of his life as a slave, understood this better than most. He said, "If you try to please everyone, you will please no one, not even yourself." These words cut to the heart of the matter. When we tie our worth to the approval of others, we lose sight of our own peace and purpose. Think about how often we bend over backward to meet others' expectations. Maybe it's saying yes to every request at work, even when you're overwhelmed. Or perhaps it's agreeing to social plans you don't really want to attend, just to avoid disappointing someone. These small compromises might seem harmless, but over time they add up. They chip away at your energy, your boundaries, and ultimately your sense of self. Here's the thing, you don't owe anyone your peace. Stoicism teaches us that inner tranquility is far more valuable than external approval. Imagine you're faced with an unreasonable demand. A friend asks you to drop everything to help them, even though you're already stretched thin. In that moment, you have a choice. Do you sacrifice your own well-being to please them, or do you kindly but firmly say no? The Stoics would argue that saying no isn't selfish, it's an act of self-respect. By setting boundaries, you protect your peace and honor your own needs. So, where in your life are you sacrificing your peace to please others? Is it at work, in your relationships, or even within your family? Take a moment to reflect on this. Are there areas where you're saying yes when you really want to say no? Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward reclaiming your autonomy. Letting go of the need to please doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop letting their opinions dictate your choices. When you prioritize your own peace, you create space for deeper, more authentic connections, ones that aren't built on people-pleasing, but on mutual respect and understanding. And in that space, you'll find a self-worth that's unshakable, rooted not in others' approval, but in your own integrity. This practice isn't about becoming indifferent or detached. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't tied to how much you do for others. It's about learning to say no when you need to, not out of fear or obligation, but out of a deep respect for yourself. And when you do, you'll discover a freedom that no amount of external validation can ever provide. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." These words, simple yet profound, remind us that the present moment is the only place where life truly happens. It's easy to get caught up in the past, replaying mistakes, regrets, or moments of rejection, or to obsess over the future, worrying about what others might think or how we'll measure up. But the Stoics teach us that the present is where our power lies. When we focus on the here and now, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of seeking validation and instead find peace in simply being. Mindfulness, a concept deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy, is the practice of bringing your full attention to the present moment. It's about noticing the sights, sounds, and sensations around you without judgment or distraction. When you're fully present, you're no longer preoccupied with what others think of you. Instead, you're immersed in the experience itself, whether it's a conversation, a task, or even a quiet moment of reflection. This shift in focus is transformative because it allows you to act from a place of authenticity rather than from a need for approval. Consider this. Imagine you're working on a project, and instead of worrying about whether your colleagues will like it, you pour all your energy into the process itself. You focus on the details, the creativity, and the joy of bringing something to life. In that moment, the opinions of others fade into the background. You're no longer seeking validation, you're simply creating. This is the power of presence. It's not about ignoring feedback or dismissing others' perspectives. It's about reclaiming your attention and directing it toward what truly matters. So, how can you bring more presence into your daily life? Start small. The next time you're eating a meal, for example, try to savor each bite. Notice the flavors, the textures, and the way the food nourishes your body. Or when you're in a conversation, really listen not just to the words, but to the emotions and intentions behind them. These moments of mindfulness might seem simple, but they're powerful. They train your mind to stay grounded in the present, where you're free from the weight of others' expectations. This practice isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Some days you'll find it easier to stay present than others, and that's okay. The goal isn't to eliminate distractions entirely, but to gently guide your attention back to the present whenever it wanders. Over time, you'll notice that the need for validation begins to fade. Why? Because you've discovered something far more valuable: the ability to fully experience your life, moment by moment, without the noise of external approval. By embracing the present, you're not just practicing mindfulness, you're reclaiming your power. You're choosing to live on your own terms, guided by your values and your inner compass. And in that space of presence, you'll find a self-worth that's unshakable, rooted not in what others think, but in the quiet confidence of knowing you're exactly where you need to be. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." While he was speaking about anger, the same principle applies to the noise of the world around us. Solitude, he believed, is not loneliness, it's a space for clarity, reflection, and growth. In a world that's constantly buzzing with notifications, opinions, and demands, solitude offers a rare opportunity to step back and reconnect with yourself. It's in these quiet moments that you can hear your own thoughts, untangle your emotions, and rediscover what truly matters to you. Spending time alone isn't about isolating yourself from the world. It's about creating a sanctuary where you can recharge and reflect. Think of it like this: when you're constantly surrounded by others, their voices can drown out your own. But in solitude, you have the chance to listen to your inner voice, the one that knows your values, your dreams, and your boundaries. This is where self-worth is nurtured, not through external validation, but through the quiet confidence that comes from knowing yourself deeply. One practical way to embrace solitude is through a digital detox. Imagine unplugging from your devices for a day. No emails, no social media, no endless scrolling. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even unsettling. But as the hours pass, you'll notice something remarkable: a sense of calm and clarity that you hadn't realized was missing. Without the constant barrage of external noise, you're free to focus on what's happening within you. Maybe you'll rediscover a forgotten passion, gain clarity on a decision you've been struggling with, or simply enjoy the peace of being present with yourself. So, what insights could you gain from spending more time in solitude? Perhaps you'll uncover hidden strengths or recognize patterns in your life that no longer serve you. Maybe you'll find that the opinions of others hold less weight when you're grounded in your own truth. Or perhaps you'll simply discover the joy of being alone, not as a burden but as a gift, a chance to reconnect with the person you're becoming. This practice isn't about escaping the world, it's about returning to it with a stronger sense of self. When you embrace solitude, you're not just stepping away from external noise, you're stepping into a space where your self-worth can flourish, free from the need for validation. And in that space, you'll find a quiet strength that no one can take away. What if failure isn't the end of the road, but a stepping stone to something greater? The Stoics saw failure not as a mark of inadequacy, but as a teacher, one of the most honest and effective teachers we'll ever have. Epictetus, who endured slavery and exile, put it this way: every difficulty in life presents us with an opportunity to turn inward and to invoke our own submerged inner resources. In other words, failure isn't something to fear or avoid. It's a chance to dig deeper, to uncover strengths we didn't know we had, and to grow in ways we couldn't have imagined. Think about a time when you faced a setback. Maybe it was a project that didn't go as planned, a job rejection, or even a personal goal that fell short. In that moment, it's easy to feel defeated, to question your abilities, or to let self-doubt creep in. But what if, instead of seeing it as a failure, you saw it as feedback? What if you asked yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to become better? This shift in perspective is at the heart of Stoic philosophy. It's not about denying the sting of failure, it's about using that sting as fuel for growth. take a modern example. Imagine you've been passed over for a promotion at work. It's disappointing, even frustrating, but instead of dwelling on what went wrong, you could ask yourself, what skills do I need to develop? What feedback can I take from this experience to improve? Maybe it's a chance to refine your leadership abilities, to communicate more effectively, or to take on new challenges that stretch your capabilities. When you reframe failure as feedback, you transform it from a roadblock into a roadmap, one that points you toward your next steps. So how can you apply this practice to your own life? Think about a recent setback or failure. What lessons can you take from it? Maybe it's a reminder to prepare more thoroughly, to seek feedback earlier, or to approach challenges with a different mindset. The key is to focus not on what went wrong, but on what you can do differently next time. This practice isn't about pretending failure doesn't hurt. It's about choosing to see it as an opportunity rather than an obstacle. When you embrace this mindset, you'll find that failure no longer holds power over you. Instead, it becomes a tool, one that helps you build resilience, refine your skills, and move closer to the person you're meant to be. And in that process, you'll discover a self-worth that's rooted not in perfection, but in the courage to keep growing no matter what. The Stoics weren't just philosophers of theory, they were practitioners of action, and one of their most powerful practices was voluntary discomfort. They believed that intentionally exposing themselves to hardship wasn't a punishment, but a way to build resilience and reduce their dependence on comfort. Seneca, who lived a life of both luxury and exile, wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" His words remind us that discomfort isn't something to avoid, it's something to embrace, because it teaches us that we're capable far more than we think. Voluntary discomfort might sound counterintuitive in a world that's constantly chasing convenience and ease. But here's the truth: when we shield ourselves from every challenge, we become fragile. We start to depend on external comforts, whether it's the perfect temperature, the perfect meal, or the perfect circumstances, to feel okay. The Stoics, however, saw discomfort as a tool for liberation. By willingly stepping into situations that test us, we prove to ourselves that we don't need everything to be perfect to thrive. Take fasting, for example. It's not about denying yourself food for the sake of suffering. It's about reminding yourself that you can endure hunger and still function. Or consider cold showers, a practice many Stoics embraced. At first, the shock of cold water might feel unbearable, but over time, it teaches you to stay calm under pressure, to breathe through discomfort, and to find strength in the midst of challenge. These small acts of voluntary discomfort aren't just physical exercises, they're mental training, preparing you for the inevitable hardships of life. So, what small discomforts could you embrace to strengthen your self-reliance? Maybe it's waking up an hour earlier to meditate or exercise, even when your bed feels impossibly cozy. Or perhaps it's turning off your phone for a day, resisting the urge to scroll and instead sitting with your own thoughts. These practices don't have to be extreme, they just need to push you slightly out of your comfort zone. The beauty of voluntary discomfort is that it's entirely within your control. You don't have to wait for life to throw challenges at you. You can create your own. And when you do, you'll find that the things you once feared, discomfort, uncertainty, even failure, lose their power over you. Instead of running from them, you'll face them with confidence, knowing that you've already proven to yourself that you can handle far more than you thought possible. This practice isn't about seeking pain for its own sake. It's about building a mindset that's unshakable, no matter what life brings. When you embrace discomfort voluntarily, you're not just strengthening your body or your willpower, you're cultivating a self-worth that's rooted in your own resilience. And that's a strength no one can take away from you. Your environment shapes your mindset, a truth the Stoics understood well. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But it's not just our thoughts that shape us, it's also the people we surround ourselves with. The Stoics believed that the company we keep has a profound impact on our character, our values, and ultimately our sense of self-worth. If you want to grow, they argued, you must choose your companions wisely. Think about it. When you spend time with people who are kind, honest, and driven by virtue, their qualities naturally influence you. Their integrity inspires you to act with integrity. Their courage encourages you to face your fears. Their wisdom helps you see the world more clearly. On the other hand, when you're surrounded by negativity, gossip, or toxic behavior, it's easy to fall into those patterns yourself. The Stoics knew that we absorb the energy of those around us, whether we realize it or not. Take a moment to reflect on your own relationships. Are there people in your life who drain your energy or pull you away from your values? Maybe it's a friend who constantly criticizes others, a colleague who thrives on drama, or even a family member who undermines your confidence. These relationships, while difficult to let go of, can hold you back from becoming the person you want to be. The Stoics would advise you to distance yourself from such influences, not out of anger or judgment, but out of respect for your own growth. At the same time, consider who in your life inspires you to live virtuously, who challenges you to be better, not through criticism, but through their example. Maybe it's a mentor who shares wisdom without expecting anything in return, a friend who listens without judgment, or a partner who supports your dreams even when they seem out of reach. These are the people who help you build a self-worth that's rooted in virtue, not validation. So, here's a question to ponder. Who in your life uplifts you and who might be holding you back? It's not about cutting people out of your life entirely, but about being intentional with your time and energy. Surround yourself with those who reflect the qualities you admire, and you'll find that their influence helps you grow stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your values. This practice isn't about perfection, it's about progress. You don't need to have a circle of flawless individuals around you. What matters is that you're intentional about the company you keep, choosing relationships that nurture your growth rather than hinder it. And when you do, you'll discover that your environment becomes a powerful ally in your journey towards self-worth, one virtuous connection at a time. What legacy do you want to leave behind? It's a question that cuts through the noise of daily life and gets to the heart of what truly matters. The Stoics believed that a life well lived isn't measured by fame, wealth, or recognition, but by the impact we have on others and the world around us. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. These words remind us that our worth isn't tied to how much we're praised or remembered, but to how much we contribute, how much we give, serve, and uplift others. Think about the difference between recognition and contribution. Recognition is fleeting. It's the applause that fades, the awards that gather dust, the praise that's quickly forgotten. Contribution, on the other hand, leaves a lasting mark. It's the kindness you show to a stranger, the time you invest in a cause you believe in, or the support you offer to someone in need. These acts might not make headlines, but they ripple outward, touching lives in ways you may never fully see. Consider the example of volunteering. When you give your time to a cause without expecting anything in return, you're embodying the Stoic ideal of service. It's not about the recognition you receive or the credit you're given, it's about the difference you make. Maybe it's serving meals at a shelter, mentoring a young person, or simply listening to someone who needs to be heard. These acts of contribution don't just benefit others, they also deepen your own sense of purpose and self-worth. So, how can you shift your focus from recognition to meaningful contribution? Start by asking yourself, what skills, talents, or resources do I have that could make a difference? Maybe it's your ability to teach, your knack for organizing, or even your capacity to listen with empathy. Then look for ways to use those gifts to serve others, even in small, everyday ways. It could be as simple as offering a helping hand to a neighbor or sharing your knowledge with someone who's struggling. This practice isn't about dismissing your own needs or neglecting your goals. It's about finding a balance, a way to pursue your ambitions while also making space for acts of service. When you focus on contribution, you'll find that the need for recognition begins to fade. Why? Because you've discovered something far more fulfilling, the quiet joy of knowing you've made a difference, no matter how small. By prioritizing contribution over recognition, you're not just living for yourself, you're living for something greater. And in that space of service, you'll find a self-worth that's unshakable, rooted not in what others think of you, but in the impact you've had on the world around you. Death is the great equalizer, a truth that strips away all pretense and reminds us of what truly matters. The Stoics called this practice Memento Mori, a Latin phrase meaning remember you must die. Far from being morbid, this concept is a powerful tool for living with intention and clarity. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." His words aren't meant to scare us, they're meant to wake us up. When we remember our mortality, we stop wasting time on trivialities and start focusing on what's truly important. Think about how often we get caught up in the small stuff, the petty arguments, the endless to-do lists, the pursuit of things that don't really matter. But when faced with the reality of death, those things lose their grip on us. Imagine receiving news of a terminal illness or losing someone close to you. Suddenly, the things that once seemed so urgent, like impressing others or chasing status, fall away. What remains are the things that truly matter: love, connection, purpose, and the legacy we leave behind. Here's a question to consider. What would you do differently if you truly embraced your mortality? Would you spend more time with the people you love? Would you pursue that dream you've been putting off? Or would you simply let go of the need for external validation and start living authentically? These aren't easy questions, but they're essential. By confronting the reality of death, we gain the clarity to live more fully in the present. Take the example of someone who loses a loved one unexpectedly. In the aftermath, they often reevaluate their priorities, spending less time at work and more time with family, or finally taking that trip they've always dreamed of. This shift isn't about fear, it's about realizing that life is finite and precious. The Stoics believed that remembering our mortality isn't a burden, it's a gift. It's a reminder to stop postponing joy, to stop waiting for the right time, and to start living now. So, how can you bring this practice into your own life? Start by asking yourself, what would I regret not doing if today were my last day? Then, take one small step toward that goal. Maybe it's reaching out to a friend you've lost touch with, starting a project you've been putting off, or simply taking a moment to appreciate the beauty around you. These actions, though small, can have a profound impact. Remembering your mortality isn't about living in fear, it's about living with purpose. When you embrace this practice, you'll find that the need for external validation fades away. Why? Because you're too busy living a life that's meaningful to you, one that's guided by your values and your deepest desires. And in that space, you'll discover a self-worth that's unshakable, rooted not in what others think, but in the knowledge that you're living fully, right here, right now. As we come to the end of this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on the 18 Stoic practices we've explored. Each one, from embracing impermanence to cultivating gratitude, from detaching from outcomes to practicing voluntary discomfort, serves as a stepping stone toward building a self-worth that's unshakable. Together, they form a roadmap, a guide to freeing yourself from the need for external validation and finding strength within. these practices aren't about perfection or rigid rules. They're tools designed to help you navigate life's challenges with clarity, resilience, and purpose. Whether it's learning to see criticism as feedback, finding joy in the present moment, or prioritizing contribution over recognition, each practice invites you to shift your focus inward. They remind you that your worth isn't tied to what others think of you, but to how you choose to live your life. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." His words capture the essence of what these practices offer, the freedom to live fully, here and now, without waiting for approval or validation. When you embrace these principles, you're not just building self-worth, you're reclaiming your power to live on your own terms. So, as you reflect on these practices, ask yourself, which ones resonate most with you? Is it the idea of focusing on what's within your control, or perhaps the practice of embracing solitude to reconnect with yourself? Maybe it's the reminder to see failure as feedback or to prioritize kindness and contribution over recognition. Whatever it is, take that insight and make it your own. Start small, experiment, and see how these practices can transform the way you see yourself and the world around you. Now it's your turn. Which of these Stoic practices will you try first? How do you see them shaping your journey towards self-worth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how these ideas resonate with you. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more insights on Stoicism and personal growth. Together, let's continue this journey toward a life of clarity, purpose, and unshakable self-worth. Thank you for watching, and remember, the power to define your worth lies within